Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebony Monet. Equifax says a security breach has exposed data for 143 million Americans. That's nearly half of the U.S. population. The data includes names, social security numbers, birth dates, and addresses. Credit card numbers were accessed too. The credit monitoring service says it happened between May and July. Equifax has set up a special website where you can check to see if your information was stolen at EquifaxSecurity2017.com. Hurricane Irma continues on its path towards South Florida tonight with top winds of 175 miles per hour. At least 11 people have died in the Caribbean. This video was taken in the British Virgin Islands.
The immigration building has lost a whole lot of windows at this point. Not good.
Irma is expected to make landfall in Florida by Sunday. Irma is one of several hurricanes the National Weather Service is monitoring tonight. Hurricane Jose is following Irma's path through the Atlantic. Jose is now a Category 2 storm, and there's a hurricane warning out for Mexican state of Veracruz because of Hurricane Katia in the Gulf of Mexico. A federal appeals court is rejecting some of the limits of President Donald Trump's travel ban, which bars people from 6 countries from entering the U.S. unless they have a bona fide relationship to people in the U.S. The rules had barred some family members, like grandparents or cousins. But today, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals said those people cannot be blocked. Neither can refugees already accepted by a resettlement agency. Federal officials have awarded 4 more contracts to build prototypes of a border wall here in San Diego, this time for see-through walls. The winning bids are all from out of state. 8 prototypes are planned in all at a cost of $3.6 million. A wall between the U.S. and Mexico was Trump's signature campaign promise. After protests and illegal action, Trump is now tweeting reassurances to immigrants who were brought into this country illegally as children. Some are covered by DACA, the Obama-era program temporarily protecting them from deportation. Trump is ending the program in 6 months. Today on Twitter, he said DACA recipients don't have to worry. There won't be any deportations during that 6-month period. Trump wants a bipartisan bill for a path to legalization. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi says Trump told her he would sign such a bill.
I'm hoping and I'm praying, and I don't say that as a cliche. I am praying that the president really cares about the dreamers or knows that he should care about the dreamers and that we're going to pass this bill.
Stay positive and remember that DACA does not define us.
About 100 students rallied to support DACA at San Diego State University today. Earlier this week, the university released a statement saying it's committed to providing a safe and welcoming environment for all. Today, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos announced plans to replace another Obama-era policy, this one dealing with sexual assaults on college campuses. Those rules told schools they must investigate and resolve all cases of sexual assault and judge students based on whether it's more likely than not they committed the offense. DeVos says the system has failed too many students, depriving them of due process.
Every survivor of sexual misconduct must be taken seriously. Every student accused of sexual misconduct must know that guilt is not predetermined. These are non-negotiable principles.
DeVos says she will seek public comment and university expertise to replace the current policy. When San Diego Unified announced more than 91% of the class of 2016 graduated, some scratched their heads. The number was unexpectedly high. This was the first class required to complete all of the courses needed to get into a state college. KPBS education reporter Megan Burks says the data released this week offered a clear picture of what happened.
The news nonprofit Voice of San Diego was one of those head-scratchers and found more than 100 struggling students from the class of 2016 left, some encouraged by staff for new districts and charter schools. Per state practice, they weren't factored into the graduation rate. It looked a bit nefarious for a district with a lot at stake. But a report released this week by UC San Diego suggests there was nothing nefarious about it. A similar number of seniors were leaving the district each year before the new graduation requirements.
The class of 2015 wasn't under this requirement to complete A to G. Class of 2016 was, and the percent leaving was about the same. The grade point average of those leaving in both years was about the same. It was sort of halfway between a C and D average.
So what is the district doing to stop this trend? Superintendent Cindy Martin says the strategies it used to push most in the class of 2016 across the finish line will help.
We know that the changes that we've made in terms of opportunity, access, equity, and excellence are changes that capture the attention of students, that school was something they came to, but now they're excited about their learning.
Those strategies include closer tracking of students to trigger early warnings, more closely aligning high school with college and career, and allowing students who already speak multiple languages to test out of foreign language requirements so they aren't stuck in classes they don't need. Martin says those strategies have already helped narrow the achievement gap for those who stayed in the district. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
The latest housing numbers show despite a slight cooling, it's still a seller's market in San Diego. The San Diego Association of Realtors says the median price of a single-family home in August was about $610,000. That's about $5,000 less than July, but up 8% from the same time last year. San Diego's real estate market is experiencing a declining inventory paired with a high demand. So the prices are going up, but fewer homes are being sold. Experts say this stall in prices is likely due to the start of the school year, which traditionally leads to a slowdown. A plan to use tents to house homeless San Diegans gained support from a local animal shelter. The idea is to put up large tents to get people off the streets until a more permanent solution is devised. It's backed by local business leaders who have already raised more than $1.5 million for the project. Now the Helen Woodward Animal Center is offering help by providing pet therapy, veterinarian checkups, and pet food. It's estimated nearly a quarter of the local homeless population have pets living with them on the streets. No word on where these tents might be pitched. Homeless encampments are reappearing in an Oceanside canyon that was partially stripped of trees to discourage overnight camping. Last June, KPBS profiled some of the people in that canyon. This week, KPBS North County reporter Allison St. John went back to see what's changed.
The canyon is totally transformed. It's now a desert of wood chips and dried bark, where once green trees and bushy undergrowth hid a fairly large and long-term encampment of people who were otherwise homeless. They were evicted when heavy equipment arrived in August and cleared virtually all of the vegetation from a section of the canyon bordering the freeway to reduce the fire hazard. Oceanside Deputy Mayor Chuck Lowry says the habitat was cleared in response to a public outcry about the threat to public safety posed by homeless people living in the canyon. But he says the strategy has not solved much.
Clearing the canyon does not solve any problems. All it did was remove a habitat for people to live in, and those people have gone somewhere else.
Lowry says some canyon residents dispersed to more public areas like the beach.
So a lot of the people went down to the beach area and were hanging out by the pier, and that created yet a higher profile circumstance.
A visit to the canyon reveals that tents are again appearing in parts that were not stripped of trees. Longtime resident Jimmy says a lot of people dispersed, but some have come back.
No, there's still some here that will, consider this home and they'll stay here, me included. This will always be home. My heart's here. A lot of people are here. They just moved to different locations out of the way. It's not as, it's not as readily accessible as it used to be. But they're still here. They're still back here. Still living and going on with their lives.
I think that the people who live here, who were living here, have to make a choice of whether or not they want to get help.
San Diego's Regional Task Force for the Homeless identified more than 2,000 people who are homeless living in North County. More than half of them are not staying in shelters. Allison St. John, KPBS News.
It's official. Former San Diego District Attorney Bonnie Dumanis is running for a seat on the County Board of Supervisors. She's running as a Republican and is backed by Supervisor Ron Roberts, who's being termed out. Dumanis will run against at least 4 others for the District 4 seat, including a former state assemblyman Nathan Fletcher, San Diego Attorney Omar Passons, and former San Diego Fire Deputy Chief Ken Marlborough. 3 Democrats. The only other Republican in the race is real estate advisor Marsha Nordstrom. Last year's vote to legalize marijuana in California means new rules for a billion-dollar industry that's expected to get even bigger. KQED's Shiraz Sadiq visited the state's second oldest dispensary to see how they're getting ready for the changes.
So I take it this is where you keep all your inventory?
Yeah, this is where we display all our top shelf green tag specials and edibles for our bud bar.
How many vendors are you buying products from?
We have over 1,000 vendors. We see hundreds of patients every day.
Do you have any sativas on special? Or?
Yeah.
In 2018, the legalization of marijuana will go into full effect in California, so anyone 21 and over can walk into a dispensary and buy pot recreationally. How is that going to impact your business?
It's going to impact us a lot. It's going to increase our patient database. Probably double, I would say.
How much did you go for?
And that means that the demand is higher, and we're going to have to start providing more products for those patients as well.
So how are you going to respond to that increased demand? Will you just simply buy more products from your vendors?
We hope that it'll be that easy, but because of the new state regulations, we can only buy after 2018 from state-permitted cultivators. We may go from seeing thousands of vendors every day to seeing 5 vendors. They won't be able to receive a permit either because they don't meet the regulations that are being put into place, or they don't have the finances to actually apply for the state permit, or the state just may lag on actually approving those permits, meaning that only a couple maybe get through. And then those would be the only cultivators that we would be able to actually purchase from at that time.
So you're saying that the green door, that your dispensary may actually run out of marijuana?
We could absolutely run out of marijuana, just like Colorado and Nevada did. When they went recreational, they didn't have enough quantity on hand from the cultivators to vend to the dispensaries, and we're very worried that that same thing is going to happen here.
The state is regulating the cannabis industry and requiring people to have business licenses, in part because they want to crack down on the black market for cannabis. Isn't that a good thing?
It's a great thing, but the regulations are so strict and cost a lot of money and time to get those state applications that it causes a lot of mom and pop cultivators that are currently doing business in California to be pushed out of getting a permit, therefore not being able to sell their products to the dispensaries, which, floods the black market.
It seems crazy to think that California, with all of the tens of thousands of pot growers, could actually run out of pot.
Run out of legitimate pot that's licensed the way that they want it regulated. It's a very fearful thing that could absolutely happen.
What do you got for me?
Today I brought you in a pound of presidential purple.
At the Green Door, I also spoke with cannabis supplier Robert Toll.
Perfect.
Earlier this year, Toll grew marijuana in Nevada, which faced shortages when recreational pot became legal there in July.
What was that experience like? What did you see over there?
It was exciting. It was a wave they weren't ready for. They went from having only a small amount of patients that could actually purchase medical marijuana to having anyone who flew into Nevada who was 21 and up could now buy weed if they were a recreational user. They weren't ready for it. The supply ran out for the social or recreational user, but not for the medical side.
Are you going to be applying for a state business license to continue to cultivate cannabis?
Yes, we are. We are formally right now in the process of doing that in Sacramento.
How are patients, or even people who want to use it recreationally, how are they going to get their hands on pot?
They're going to do it the old-fashioned way. They're going to go to the streets. They're going to go to people who know people and do it the bad way, where we're not getting taxation on it, where we're not, giving the money that we need to make sure things go the way they should.
CO2 oil?
California is about to regulate this billion-dollar industry that you've been a part of for some time. What do you like about those efforts, and what don't you like?
I love the fact that it's going to be legal.
Have a good one, love.
I love the fact that I'm going to be able to open a facility and do what I want and pay my taxes like I want. It's a great thing, but there's going to be paperwork. It's going to be a battle. It's an uphill battle that a lot of people might not make.
San Diego's composting program keeps an estimated 100,000 tons of organic waste out of landfills every year. And now it's getting a boost. City officials announced today the State Department has awarded a $3 million grant to improve the program. This will allow for upgrades at the Miramar Greenery facility and fund the food rescue program. The partnership with Kitchens for Good takes unused produce and food from grocery stores and turns it into meals for seniors and low-income families. According to Cal Recycle, about 40% of materials that end up in landfills are compostable. This year, wildfire season is expected to go down as one of the worst in U.S. history. One of the challenges for fire crews, huge stands of dead trees that could come crashing down. AP reporter Peter Banda says those trees are forcing a change in tactics.
An up-close view of pine bark beetles chomping away in a lab.
This sawdust is the evidence of what they've left behind in their track.
Across the western United States and Canada, trillions of these insects are destroying forests. U.S. Forest Service statistics compiled for the Associated Press show there are about 6.3 billion dead trees still standing in 11 states, up from 5.8 billion 5 years earlier.
It's lost all its needles and is basically rotting as it's standing.
Firefighters call the dead trees snags. They're one of the most dangerous hazards at a fire. The trees can come crashing down without warning, so firefighters have to work farther from the flames, which means more forest could burn before the wildfire is brought under control.
Those fuels are more receptive to fire and they're harder to put out, and when there's a lot more of them, it takes that much more effort to put it out.
The bark beetle infestation has affected nearly 85,000 square miles in the West since 2000. The mountain pine beetle, one of 24 species, is responsible for nearly half the damage. This forest near Laramie, Wyoming, once looked like this one in Colorado.
For some species of trees and in some areas it's due to drought effects or climatic stresses or other stresses. In other areas, like this long-term outbreak that's occurred with the mountain pine beetle over recent years, these just happen.
50 miles west of Denver, Seth Davis is studying the chemical composition of trees in this forest that is being attacked by pine beetles. They infiltrate the layer just below the bark, disrupting the tree's ability to draw in water and nutrients.
They're pretty well defended, and there's only usually a several-week window any given year where the beetles are actually flying around and landing on trees, so there's not a lot of opportunity to expose them, to like pesticides.
Davis and other scientists hope to find trees that are resistant to beetles in order to protect future forests. Peter Banda, Associated Press, Centennial, Wyoming.
San Diego researchers say some of the world's rarest lizards are facing tough times as Hurricane Irma sweeps through the Caribbean. Island iguanas are critically endangered because of predators introduced by man. Glenn Gerber works with San Diego Global. He's concerned efforts to raise young lizards in captivity could be swamped by rising storm waters. Several of the islands that have iguana centers are also very low-lying.
This one, I went through the British Virgin Islands just south of an island called Anegada, where we have, there's a head starting facility and has about 60 highly endangered, critically endangered Anegada iguanas. And we really don't have contact with the island at this point.
Gerber says he hasn't been in contact with researchers in the Caribbean since before the hurricane passed through. He hopes to learn soon how the centers fared. Well, spotty showers and low clouds headed to parts of San Diego. Erin Calandra has more in tonight's forecast.
We are seeing a more active pattern here across the county as far as showers and thunderstorms popping up. It's going to continue to increase throughout the weekend. We just have more moisture coming up from Mexico, which is allowing all of these showers and thunderstorms to pass through the area. A high pressure system pushed off to the east, and that's leaving everyone here in the southwest more susceptible to moisture, and that is creating more showers and thunderstorms. So tonight, 69 degrees for the overnight low, increasing clouds clouds, and then, of course, in the morning when you wake up, they're going to be there, but by lunchtime, breaking up with plenty of sunshine. Tonight, Oceanside, 63 degrees, San Diego, 69. As we push inland, Ramona, 59 degrees, Alpine as well. Borrego Springs, 75 degrees. Here we are on Friday, and this is that moist, humid air coming up from Mexico. So the Four Corners, the deserts especially, are going to see some downpours, mainly in the evening hours. And as I said, that is going to increase here into San Diego County for the next couple of days, into the weekend, really. So taking a look at temperatures for today, or for tomorrow, excuse me, not today, tomorrow. It's going to be nice. Oceanside, 76 degrees. San Diego as well. In Poway, 86 degrees. Alpine as well. And Ramona, 88 degrees. And again, we're going to see some showers and thunderstorms, not just in the mountains, but also the deserts. Mountains a little bit more susceptible to that wet weather. So here we are, the coast for the next 5 days. Look at these temperatures, really perfect conditions. Could see a very brief shower Sunday here, but then other than that, it's going to be sunny and beautiful. Inland again, Sunday could be a wet day, not wet, just a shower passing through, maybe a thunderstorm, temperatures in the 80s. And then in the mountains, Friday, pretty much any day really in the mountains, we could see showers or a thunderstorm brief popping through. And then sunshine, temperatures in the low 70s. And then in the deserts, it's hot, but not as hot as it has been. Look at this, a breakthrough Sunday with only double-digit temperatures, returning to 101 by Monday. For KPBS News, I'm Erin Calandra.
The Tijuana River estuary is showing a surprising resilience in its ability to cope with large raw sewage flows. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson says that's not happening without help. Biologists are managing nearly constant threats to the complex ecosystem.
This is the Pacific Ocean. Federal wildlife biologist Brian Collins stands on a narrow strip of beach just north of the U.S.-Mexico border. The salt water that comes in, yeah, we have a couple of snowy egrets hanging out waiting for the fish to come and go. This is where the infamous raw sewage flows find the ocean. But Collins says it's also a lifeline for the complex web of life in the estuary. This little river mouth feeds this entire wetland. This is the largest estuarine wetland left in Southern California. This narrow opening in the beach allows for an inland flow, bringing salt water to the marsh and mud flats that cover the valley floor. So this is a pinch point. It's kind of like your aorta. You know, you need that to stay open, to stay alive. This estuary needs this river mouth to stay open. The ocean flow keeps the oxygen levels up, and that helps sustain the delicate ecosystem that supports endangered species like the ridgeway rail. That's a rare bird that only thrives in coastal muddy salt marshes. Their habitat is exceptionally green this summer because the estuary was flooded with nutrient-rich sewage. We learned the hard way how fast this system can go into that sort of condition given the types of inflows that we have. And we have data on the inflows, so we know how much effluent that this system absorbed during that event. Biologists don't specifically measure sewage or contamination in this habitat, but they do track the estuary's vital signs. Researcher Jeff Crooks points at a post that sits on the edge of a channel where open water flows. It's one of several permanent monitoring stations.
And you can look and see there's the little top hat thing that's a satellite uplink. So this is being uploaded and we can look at the data in real time. Just out of sight, a 2-foot-long tube contains instruments that dip into the open water. Those instruments essentially take the pulse of the estuary. So that unit is sitting in there and every 15 minutes is measuring how warm the water it is, how salty it is, how cloudy it is. It's measuring water level. Really importantly, it's measuring how much oxygen is in the water. Plunging oxygen levels recently alerted biologists that there was a problem in the estuary. Sand had clogged the opening of the Tijuana River, stopping the intertidal exchange of water. Clearing that blockage gave the estuary a chance to recover. And Brian Collins says recovery is an ongoing battle here. I know that if we're smart and work with natural systems in ways that are science-based and intelligent, and we continue to develop science and data from studying these systems,
I know we can restore them. It's just a matter of us collectively choosing to invest the energy in that.
The estuary ecosystem has proven to be resilient, even as it deals with extraordinary challenges. There are ongoing battles against invasive species, trash, sediment, and those massive rain-driven renegade sewage flows.
Just in the last 3 years, there were 300 sewage spills just in the canyons alone. That's one sewage spill every 3 days.
Imperial Beach Mayor Serge Dedina got so frustrated this past winter that he's preparing to take the federal government to court. The city announced last month they intend to sue the International Boundary and Wastewater Commission. That's the federal agency responsible for cross-border sewage issues.
The problem is they don't have money. So we need to get this in front of a federal judge and the U.S. Attorney's Office so they can actually sit down and force the IBWC to fix these egregious discharges of toxic waste and toxic sewage in the Tijuana River and in the canyons that are impacting our beach and the beach in Coronado.
Dedina is urging other cities to join their legal effort. Coronado has discussed the possibility in at least 2 closed-door meetings. The Coronado mayor is directing his city council to consider, among other things, drafting a participation agreement with Imperial Beach. KPBS reached out to the San Diego city attorney, Mara Elliott. Her office indicated they've been contacted about the Imperial Beach litigation. However, the city attorney isn't ready to make a recommendation to the mayor or city council. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
There's a new art installation along the border. Take a look. It's a photo of a little boy posed so he's looking over the border fence near Tecate. This was done by a French street artist called JR. The work is installed on the Mexican side of the border and it was unveiled just yesterday. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.